Hello, I'm Lucy Barkas, founder of 3WH, a leadership and team development consultancy. We work with all kinds of organisations to help them to transform not only their leadership skills, their team working skills, but also their business culture and the environment so that people can do their best work and best thinking and deliver their best results. Now, I founded the company 7 years ago on the belief that everyone can achieve their full potential if only given the right environment and having somebody that believes in them a little more than they believe in themselves. And we work with some amazing brands such as the Chamber of Commerce and Trelleborg, who is a global engineering company with over 10,000 employees in 98 different locations. We've worked with the BBC and Specsavers. So we've got some really great household names, but it doesn't really matter what organization you are, or even what you actually do or make. To me, what is really important is that you have this belief that people are your greatest assets, and they can also be your biggest blocks and barriers, but people make the organization. And being a leader of a liberated team is the answer to being agile and flexible and leading in chaotic and fast changing times. So a liberated team essentially gets rid of that old command and control, that old stiff hierarchy and structure where the control and all the decision making sits at the top, with the manager managing people and resources and workload, or the director literally directing everybody. Instead, the liberated team mindset is where the leader acts as more of a coach or a facilitator. So they set the direction, they set the vision and the mission, and they set the objectives, but then they allow their people to set the what and the how, so that they're empowering other people to do their best work and best thinking. So the teams have more autonomy and more control. Now, I've actually been blessed in the sense that I've always worked in an environment of liberated teams. All of my, leaders that taught me how to be a leader would always ask me, what my best thinking was, what my recommendations were, what I needed to be successful, and they believed and they trusted me. And when things didn't go right, rather than blaming me or making me feel rubbish, they would say, okay, what could you have done differently? What would you do differently next time? So it's a real culture in all of the teams that I've worked in and teams that I've developed, to really liberate and empower and release control from the top down. I have, however, worked with one micromanaging control freak. They were actually really lovely people, and I was really excited to have them as my boss and to join their team. However, they were so worried about not being successful themselves that they felt like they needed to look over my shoulder, constantly worry about where I was and what I was doing. They needed to look over every PowerPoint slide that I'd ever written. Or before I went to see one of the CEOs or somebody on the C-suite, they would always need to check with me, what was I going to say? And until I said, look, trust me. I've got all this experience. I'm at this level. I'm responsible for hundreds of people. Why wouldn't you trust me? And that challenge was amazing. But we kind of knew immediately that this wasn't going to be a long-term solution. And eventually I left. So I know that when I'm being controlled or micromanaged, I kind of give up in the end. I don't want to buy into the vision because it doesn't matter. I'm not going to grow or develop. It's not my vision. I haven't played a part in formulating the strategy. So I become essentially a puppet, and that doesn't serve me. So everything that I teach in my development courses, my coaching, my online courses, It's all around how to be more of a liberated leader, so that your people can do their best work, their best thinking, and get their best results. So I wanted to just put a little bit of context into why we used to, or we commonly have this old command and control style, and why it's going to shift in the future, and it's already shifting. Historically, we had less of the human brain engaged in the work, and it was very much about the physical form. So it was how many widgets could you create, how many parts that you could produce on a production line. It didn't need brains and thinking and creativity and innovation. It just needed somebody to physically turn up, and if you didn't do the job, there was somebody else there that could be trained very quickly. So in those areas, I suppose command and control worked really well. And in times of crisis, sometimes you need to make some snap decisions and be quite dominant in that sense, but not long term, because if you need to tap into human capability, you really need to be able to create the environments where human capability can be maximised, and that is in the liberated team. And the world is changing. By 2025, 56% of your workforce are going to be under the age of 40. So, you know, the people with the wisdom, the people with the old ways of working are going to start becoming the minority. And you're going to have about 20% of the workforce who are what we call leader X, or the youngest of the generation X and the oldest of the millennials, who have got a common sense of values because of the way that they were brought up. And they value autonomy, they value relationship, they value freedom, fun and experience. And because of that, they are naturally leading liberated teams and creating the environment where people really can thrive. And that's going to become the norm going forward, which is great because these under 40s really want to do work that is exciting, that gives them the freedom, that gives them more purpose and meaning, and that they enjoy, they have a positive experience when they do their work. And because we are now in a global economy where more people are going to be doing contracting or short-term contracts, there's more freelancers, more multi-locations and remote working, the liberated team is just going to become the normal way of doing things. You can also think of it as matrix style teams or project teams that come together to solve a problem and then disperse. So as a leader, you know, if this is what your people want, it's also the way to lead in the future, just because of the environment of work and where the talent is. And as a leader, you need to get upskilled and start learning how to be a liberated leader now. So let's just look at what a liberating team needs to be liberated. Well, the first thing it needs is a common purpose. So it doesn't matter whether we're talking about a huge organization or a department, a function, a team, or even a project team. It still needs to be really clear on why do we need to deliver X, Y, or Z. So everyone has clear, you know, guides and role models and clarity over why are we in business, what is the outcome we're trying to achieve, and I guess, do I believe in it? The second thing then is culture. So we're really looking at how things are done. So we're looking at the environment, the operating model, the behaviours, and again we're looking at who are the role models. You know, have we got an environment that's based in trust and freedom and no blame or judgment, no conflict, so that people can literally free up their minds to do their best thinking. And then we have clarity over roles, responsibilities, who is doing what by when. You know, there's no room for ambiguity, because that's the breeding ground of mediocrity and conflict. So in liberated teams, you haven't got time to get involved in that kind of stuff. So you need to eradicate it by leading in a different way. And then you need to be really clear on the goals, because if you are liberating your people, That doesn't mean to say that you stand back and have no responsibility. Your role is still to be responsible for getting the work done, or the results for the business or team done. So what you need is some kind of SMART goals, some metrics, some feedback to know that everybody is on track. And that might look like weekly check-ins, it might look like a report, it might be that there's a global call done once a month where everybody, has a RAG status. You will find the method that works for you, but it means that you only come together when something is wrong. So you only really need to be involved when a huge decision needs to be made, or there's an investment decision, or to give the right kind of praise and championing when it's needed. But it gives you the freedom then to know that those guys are delivering what they need to do, so you can focus on your job. So to lead a liberated team, you need to really set the direction, because if you don't know where you're going and you can't articulate it, nobody else is going to know where you're going. So you rally people around passionately around that purpose because you believe in it. You create a vision of what the future looks like, and then you create a mission. So this is what we're going to do, and it might look like a set of objectives, but it's always linked back, and you talk with real purpose and passion. And then you liberate people to do their best work. You also then need to be able to create the space so that once you've delegated and empowered, that people feel safe enough to take some risks and make some decisions and be the best that they could be. So it means that you need to listen more. So you need to be a facilitator and coach. You need to ask some really powerful questions. You need to help people find solutions rather than wading in straight away, like a superhero coming in and fixing everything. That's not your role. You need to create an environment where if people do make mistakes or speak up or come up with a daft idea, that's okay, because at least they're trying. So no fear of judgment or criticism or speaking up that is going to be career limiting, because the way in which they speak up, the environment is all positive and looking for future solutions. So as a leader of a liberated team, learn to hold back and only get involved if it's absolutely necessary. And you need to really set the expectations of, demanding best work. You don't want mediocrity. So if you're always striving for your best and to be the best that you can be, you're already being the role model to get everybody else to step up and take control and deliver their best work. When you set a goal or a task to somebody and they come back with their work, then ask them, is this really your best work? Is there anything else you could have done? If you were to spend just 10 minutes or an hour refining it, could you make it even better? So really set the expectation of what brilliant looks like and ask people to reach it. Now, this isn't, about putting extra pressure or extra stress on people. This is just about inspiring and encouraging them to be the very best that they can be, and then celebrating with them when they've achieved it. And when somebody comes to you with a problem, ask them, so what's your best thinking on this? Encourage them to think big, dream big. It may be that, their best thinking is way more than what you thought of yourself. So it gives you an opportunity as a group, as a collective, to become more. And if they do fail, that's fine, but fail fast and fail forward. So take those lessons, dust yourself off and move forward with it. But part of your role is to create a feedback environment. So you're constantly checking in, continually improving, and that goes for you too. You need that feedback too. And then, we want to get away from these silos and this politics that I can't speak to them and they work over there, so I can't speak to them. That's rubbish. You all work for the same organisation. You've all got the same purpose, the overall objectives. So really encourage collaboration and knock down those mental and physical silos. Find ways to encourage people to work together, even if they are in different time zones and different locations. One of my best bosses in the past, he said that part of my job was to take every single member of my peer group, as well as my team, for coffee at least once a month. And sometimes that would have been a one-on-one, sometimes it might have been groups of 2 or 3 people. But the instruction was, but when you go for a coffee, you're not allowed to talk about work. And I thought that was insane. But the reality was that's when I really started to get to understand people, about what made them tick, about what motivated them, what skills and strengths that they had. And we started to know and like and trust each other. And that then meant that when I needed some help or some support or a few extra resources, it would always come my way, because we had that almost friendship. So really try and create the collaboration environment. So now let's talk about the values of a liberated leader. And they are the values of Leader X. So the first thing is, well, autonomy. So if you're going to be empowering people and liberating them, you need to give them the autonomy to be able to deliver. So the first part is creating that personal responsibility. So if I give you something to do, or you willingly take a task or an opportunity, then you need to take the personal responsibility then of delivering against it. It's about taking personal responsibility for the impact and the outcomes of what you deliver. So, you know, that means that you need to create that safety. So, you know, people feel safe to speak up, make decisions, think creatively, and also behave in the right way at the right time. So they might need some support, they might need some training, but ultimately you need to trust people and give them the personal responsibility for delivering. And then that leads into accountability. So if they're not delivering, and they're not doing what they've signed up for, and they're not taking personal responsibility, then you need to hold them accountable for that. But that's not about you always holding each other accountable. Sometimes it could be peer-to-peer accountability. Could be that your people start holding you accountable for doing what you said you were going to do. So with personal responsibility, accountability just goes hand in hand. So, you know, people willingly look for feedback. They willingly accept challenge to be more and do more. And ultimately, you empower people. So, you know, to develop your people to be able to step up and take that accountability by giving them the skills, giving them the freedom, giving them the trust, but also then just get out of their way so that, you know, they are empowered to deliver, so they can thrive. Now, when they come to you, ask them, how do you want me to be today? What do you need from me? And then assess whether it's helpful or not. So they might need you to be a coach. They might need you to be a mentor. So passing on some of your wisdom. They might need you just to be an accountability buddy. So I really need to get this done. It has to be done by Tuesday. So can you keep me on track? So those kind of, you know, different hats that you put on, you might naturally know which hat to put on, but it's so much more empowering to ask your team member, how do you need me to be with you? So Leader X values relationship. So what does that mean? It means that they really prioritize teamwork. They know that they are only as successful as the people around them. That, you know, if one person is struggling, they need somebody else to help lift them up. So there's no room for any showboaters or any glory hunters. You're all in it together, because you are really as strong as your weakest link. And it's everybody in the team's role to make sure that everybody is pulling their weight, delivering their best work, and setting the expectations. So, you know, part of that is to be really clear on what is teamwork, how do we do teamwork around here. And so before you bring any people together, you want to be maybe having those team charter conversations about who makes decisions, how are actions done, how do we give feedback, what behaviours are expected or not expected in this environment. So you really get really clear on how do we do teamwork around here. And then you know, when you onboard new members, so whether it's a contractor that's come in or whether it's a new, you know, permanent member of the team, maybe it's somebody who is, you know, based in another country, but they're going to start coming and working with you. You need to onboard them so they understand how teamwork is done around here. So a liberated leader puts teamwork and how it's done right at the heart of it, and it's part of their strategy. And then they know to act as a coach. So they're not directing. They've set the direction, but then they, you know, they might make some of the big decisions even, but then they act as a facilitator. So what I see in, you know, liberated teams is, you know, if the leader is the person that's holding the meeting, they might pose the topic. They might be clear about what the outcome is that they want at the end of that meeting, but then they just shut up and they facilitate a discussion or an ideas generating brainstorming session, but they don't give their views and their opinions until the end, because unfortunately just by the hierarchy that you have, people will look to please you and give you the answers, and you've just got more power and influence. So a liberated leader speaks last. So try it. It might be really difficult, but, you know, try it and see what happens. They also act as the coach and the challenger, the champion, by asking, is this your best work? Is this the best thinking that you've done on this? And then they might move into more of a supporter, but they also encourage everybody else to support each other. Because like I said, you know, you're only as successful as your weakest link. So emotional intelligence is absolutely critical. And if you're not anywhere near being a liberated leader first, I would, you know, start with developing your emotional intelligence and that of your team. So that looks like, you know, being self-aware, understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, understanding how you're feeling about something and how your attitudes are influencing you, and what's the action that you've taken as a result of that. So really understanding, and then looking at how, you know, empathizing with others, so putting yourself in their shoes. So if they're struggling or they're having a tough time, or if they're elated about something, then celebrate or support, but meet them where they are. One question that I ask, you know, all leaders to do, as I mentioned, is just to say, you know, how do you need me to be with you? Do you need me to lean in? Do you need me to be more challenging? Do you need me to be more dominant or autocratic right now? So really do, you know, support them by being what they need you to be, not what you think they need. And then we've got freedom. So if you've got a liberated team, it just makes sense that you know, freedom is going to be essential. So in this context, I want to think about individuality. So knowing that some people are morning people, some people are afternoon people. Some people might get up at 6 and be fully charged and focused, but wane by 3 o'clock. Other people might be, you know, having short bursts throughout the day, but are really happy to be still working at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. It doesn't matter. Work with where people get their energy from, and, you know, allow them to work when they are at their best. I know what I'm like, you know, when I've been sat in an 8-hour meeting that started at 9, by 5 o'clock, I'm bored, I've not moved around, my energy levels are low, but I also know that I've got to go and pick the kids up from school and I've got to get through rush hour traffic. Well, seriously, you're not going to get the best out of me in those sessions. You might have in the morning, by the afternoon, I'm done. So really start thinking about, you know, matching the work, the sessions, the way that you do work based on the individuals. And also take the time to get to know the individual. So find out what their motivators are, what really spurs them on, what are they wanting to achieve from working in this team, and then match that with the team's goals and purpose. And find the sweet spot and try and marry their skills, their aspirations, and their desires. And that's where the sweet spot of fulfillment is. And then you need to start looking at diversity. So, you know, the liberated leader doesn't care what you look like, how tall you are, what country you come from, whether you've got tattoos or a Mohican. They don't care. All they care about is whether you fit into the team, you've got the right behaviours, you can deliver, and you really add value. So it's very much, about a meritocracy. So Leader X actively promotes diverse thinking, diverse individuals, and bringing them together to form the ultimate team, whether it's for a short-term project or it's a longer-term big goals. But together, diverse thinking with different perspectives and different ideas and different skill sets together can really create genius results. And also, freedom means that you haven't got those constraints, you haven't got those walls that keep you hemmed in. Now, we all must operate within legal and even, within your business cultural boundaries. There might be some systems and processes that absolutely need to be done. But for everything else, if it's getting in the way of stopping you from performing, remove them. You're the leader, remove those boundaries. Empower your people to remove the boundaries, to have conversations and collaborate with others to find out how to make things slicker, faster, smoother, simpler. So that's one of the things that I'd really challenge you to think about. How can you be more efficient and remove the boundaries that stop people from being really productive? And then Leader X values fun. This is absolutely critical. So not only do the leadership generation, the next generation, value fun, but so does every other generation that comes after it. Nobody wants to go to work to be miserable. Nobody wants to go to work to have stress. And then they take that home and they're miserable with their other halves and their family, and they've got no energy. It sounds like hell. So Leader X, the liberated leader, really puts fun high on the priority. Now that might look like just trying to remove all the stuff that isn't fun, like those 8-hour meetings, like those late night emails, like copying the world into everything, and just, never feeling like you can get through your work. Work doesn't need to be hard. It doesn't need to be complex. In fact, when we enjoy our work, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like joy. It feels like fulfillment. So try and look at ways that you can have playful discussions. You can bring in more creativity. You can change your settings, your environment. Stand up and go for a walk with somebody rather than just sitting down in the same way. Play scenarios. Dream big. Build moments that unify and bond. And this is something that I would say is even more important now. As people have been away and they might start then coming back together, try and find ways to build the team, have fun together, and to reconnect. And then we come on to fulfillment. So tapping into business purpose and personal purpose and all the aspirations and strengths that go with that means that you'll be able to really craft the role and the projects and the tasks around an individual so that they are delivering the business purpose, but they're also feeling really fulfilled, that they've got some meaning to their role, and that they really feel like they're competent and they're well matched to their role. They become more engaged, more motivated, more fun to be around. And they go home feeling like they've accomplished something, like they fit in and they belong. And then you need to create an environment where you're celebrating the successes. So equally, you're giving the feedback when things go wrong, but when things go right, you're actually celebrating. So, some of the things that we used to do, in my team was every Christmas, yes, we'd have the big Christmas party, but everybody, I think it was the last working day of the season, everybody would bring in one buffet item and they'd all gather around my desk and we'd just hang out together and just have lunch together. We would have walking groups, we'd have quarterly team briefs where we'd go off and play rounders together or build some towers and just have fun together. When things were going well, we'd just stop and we would recognise the team or the individual who's made a success. We would celebrate birthdays and weddings, and everybody always had a card and a cake or a little gift. And it wasn't always coming from the leader. It then started becoming, somebody in the office would always remember and buy the card or generate a collection. So other people started owning it. So recognize people, acknowledge people, find ways to celebrate successes, and success breeds more success. And ultimately, you're creating an experience, an environment where people can do their best work. So leaders of liberated teams really do focus on creating those environments where people have the maximum experience. So the word people experience really comes from this next generation of leaders. They've been leading from the side and focusing on people experience and customer experience for long enough. Well, now they're going to be stepping up into the key roles. It's going to just be the way that things are done. So yeah, when you've got somebody on a phone call, or you've got somebody on a Zoom meeting, or you've got somebody face to face, or walking into the office or place of work, you can just see that they're looking forward to it. And if they're not happy one day, then people around them are going to check in with them and support them and ask them the right questions. So all of this together is going to give a really positive people experience. But there's the other angle of experience too, which is about developing experience with people. So creating an environment where people are learning and developing and having mentors, sharing wisdom and skills, and being very open and transparent. People are given opportunities to try new things, get involved in projects that might be out of their comfort zone, being challenged, have development plans. So already you're starting to create the environments where people feel free to stretch and grow and develop. So ultimately, you are standing on the shoulders of the giants that you create. So a lot of this, this that I've spoken about today is within the book Leader X, which takes you through why this next generation has these values, and then how to move through the 5 Minds methodology to really embed a culture of liberation and empowerment, but with strategy right at the heart of it. If you want to carry on the conversation with me, I'd be delighted to hear from you. You can visit my website at 3wh.uk.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm there. I think I'm the only Lucy Barkas. And I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, search 3WH, or just simply find the hashtag LeaderX. Or you can just buy the book, listen to the podcast. But I would really love to carry on the conversation with you in some way. Thank you for your time.